Alrighty, so we are recording now. So yeah, again, thanks for coming and welcome, Marina and Kate. Great to have you here. So I will just, oh, Haiti, I can't share my screen. You need to, I think, make me a host again.
That's okay. I've allowed sharing. You should be okay now.
Okay, yep, perfect. Alrighty, there we go. Can everyone see that all right?
Yep.
Perfect. Alrighty, so yep, welcome everyone. I'll just share my contact info on the chat as well. You should have my email anyways by now, since I've been emailing you a fair bit, but just to give you my phone number as well, which is on my email signature too. Just to have it here. There we go. Perfect. Alrighty. So first of all, we'd like to start with acknowledgement of country. So we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country, which we all meet on today. So for myself, it would be the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And we recognize their continuing connection to land, waters, and culture, and pay our deepest respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And if you guys like to acknowledge the country that you're on, I guess for you guys it would be the same, Marina and Kate, but you can write it on the chat if you'd like.
And I'm on here and Naga and Naro country up in the Whitsundays. So yes, I pay my respects as well.
Very different country, far, far away.
Dodging thunderstorms and lightning strikes and hailstones that are 16 centimeters in diameter over the last 72 hours. It is a bit hectic up here.
Ooh, for once, Melbourne is kind of like the calm place to be in, which is nice for a change. Alrighty, so quickly to go through the agenda for today. So we're just gonna get everyone to introduce themselves as well. And then we're gonna talk a little bit about Tangara Blue, who we are and what we do, and give you a little bit of a recap of the phase 1 of the project, what we did, and then a summary of this phase 2 that you're now going to be a part of. We'll have a quick break so that you can get any drinks and go to the bathroom if need be. And then we're just gonna go through what is basically required from you to volunteer for the project, and what's going to be included in your volunteer kits that we'll provide to you with the bags, do a bit of a safety briefing, and then go through how to actually do the sorting and the data collection once you do have the bags, and also a few tips on the disposal of the debris. And at the end, we'll also have some time for a Q&A if you do have any questions that come up. Alrighty, so we'll go through our attendees just to let us know your name and whereabouts in Melbourne you're located, and maybe just what made you decide to want to volunteer for the project. So let's start with you, Nerida.
Sure, yes. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I've just had a fascination with waste since I was knee-high. I don't know why, I just find it endlessly fascinating, and yeah, just been always interested in you know, how it gets reused or not. And yes, I live in OC South, and I have a 4-month-old baby, so that's kind of my main deal at the moment. But yeah, that's why I'm here, because yeah, I just find it really interesting, and yeah, I just like to be involved in environmental programs wherever I can.
Amazing, thank you. And next one would be Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm in Elwood. I'm a retired primary school teacher, but I've been involved in lots of environmental volunteering over the years. I also worked for a while at Port Phillip Eco Centre. I ran the local Water Watch group. I I was on the St Kilda penguin research team. So I've got quite a few interests. But of course, over the last nearly 2 years, everything's come to a dead stop. So I've just been looking for something that I can get involved with, even though we're still locked down. So I'm happy to sort rubbish in my garage.
Amazing. Well, we're very happy to have you both helping us and anyone and everyone watching the recording afterwards, because sorting through 158 bags by myself or with one other person seemed a bit daunting. So we're grateful for all the help that we can get. So that's great. Awesome. All right, Hayley, did you want to give us a little spiel about Tangaroa Blue?
Sure. So for those that don't know, Tangaroa Blue is a registered charity. We were formed in 2004 back in Western Australia, and we created this platform called the Australian Marine Debris Initiative. And since then, it's expanded, and now it's a national program. We work with community volunteers, with community and other organisations and NGOs, with government authorities and agencies, with local councils, and with industry bodies as well on two things. The first one is the removal of marine debris and litter that's already in the environment. And the second thing is, how do we prevent it from occurring in the future? Because for those of you that have been involved in cleanups in the past, I know that it kind of gets tiring picking up other people's rubbish all the time. So we need to invest just as much in source reduction as we do in immediate removal if we're going to get really long-term impact. Our big mantra is, if all we do is clean up, that's all we're ever going to do. And so to help us with this strategy and policy and pushing for change, we need evidence, and the evidence is our data. So everything that we collect, we count and record. And since we started primarily on beaches, now we've expanded to a lot of other types of environments. So, estuaries and lakes and stormwater traps and industrial areas and all kinds of things, which are all part of that path from where something becomes litter to when it actually ends up into the environment. And that's a more holistic way of addressing the issue. Obviously, stormwater traps for us are really exciting because we're so much closer to the source than we might be if we're picking stuff up off a beach that may have washed out to sea and then come back up at a totally different location. So we actually collect a little bit more detailed data than we have in the past, and that's because it's really helping us to narrow down to that source identification. And a couple of really exciting things that have happened, just recently, we're very, very close. Before the end of the year, we're going to hit over 20 million data points in the database. So it's the biggest marine debris database in the Southern Hemisphere. It's one of the longest running ones in the world. And so that's really exciting. And we've had over 150,000 volunteering opportunities. And I think there's over 2,000 community organisations that contribute to that. So it's really solidified that national network framework. And the other really exciting thing is that we've had a partnership with the University of New South Wales now for a number of years. And just over the last few days, they've released a scientific paper in a scientific journal, which looked at the validity of citizen science data for things like policy change at all different scales. And they basically tried to pull the AMSI database apart and say that, it's not good data because it's not collected by scientists, and they weren't able to do that. So, the outcomes of that paper are really supporting how important citizen science data is. If there's a really good framework around it, if training is given to the volunteers and the citizen scientists, so that we're all, really doing the same kind of data collection and calling things the same way and putting it all in one spot. So that paper is really exciting, and The Guardian actually picked it up. So if you have a look on the Tangaroa Blue Facebook page, you can see there's a link to the Guardian article and then also a link to the paper. And we're just so thrilled because it really shows that all of those hours, and we know that in most cases, counting the rubbish takes more time than it did to collect it. So it's that extra effort, but this is really showing how important that extra effort is and what it can actually achieve. So that's a little bit about who we are, what we are, and I'm the CEO, but I do like to keep involved in a lot of these projects because I'm really still excited about waste as well, even after all these years. Back to you, Mel, and also happy to answer any questions.
Awesome, thanks, Katie. So yeah, this slide kind of explains what Katie was already saying before, how the Australian Marine Debris Initiative kind of works. So we do those cleanups and then do the sort, collect the data, put it in the database, and that helps us actually track the source of the items, and then we can make those source reduction plans to actually reduce the amount of debris that we are finding in the environment. But then it's really important to kind of keep doing that loop. So if you collect the data, do a plan, but never actually monitor again if there is a reduction or not, you don't know if what you're doing is actually working. So it's important to keep checking. And that's why, for example, with these projects, we don't just do one audit and call it a day. We're actually doing several ones every 8 weeks. So we get that consistency. I can see if there's any changes happening as well. And it's been estimated that about 95% of the debris in Port Phillip Bay is actually from land sources. So we feel like often the idea with people is like, oh, it's the beachgoers or tourists or kids who litter, but that's not always the case. A lot of stuff in Port Phillip Bay is actually getting there through stormwater drains. And you can really see it if you go after a big rain, for example, in St. Kilda or Port Melbourne. There's so many bottles, cans, cigarette butts, kind of like, yeah, stuff that you would get from the street. So we can definitely see that from the database. And yeah, again, what Katie was saying before, the most cost-effective way of actually preventing marine debris is to stop it at the source rather than that we just keep cleaning up. Oh, I forgot to update the stats. I can see that now, but good thing. Good thing that Heidi mentioned before that roughly the numbers that we have had almost 20,000 items removed and many hours, which come up to around $60 million of volunteer hours contributing since the start of 2004.
Mel, I have them.
Oh, yay, good. All righty, you go through them.
We have 4,047 cleanup sites around Australia, 197,464 volunteers or volunteer opportunities. So we're about to hit over 200,000 volunteers. That's crazy. 1,510 tons. As I mentioned, almost 20 million data items removed or items removed in the database, and 555,837 volunteer hours. So if you times that by 30, the last time I did the calculation, it was between $16 and $17 million worth of in-kind support from volunteers. It's just crazy. And we're just about to kick over 25,000 actual cleanup events that have gone into the database as well. So on the front page of our homepage, we've got a running total. And so that's where you can find those and keep an eye on it when we get those big milestones, which are coming up soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi. Good save. Alrighty, so then a little recap of the phase 1. So it was a Victorian first stormwater litter monitoring project, which was really exciting. And the goal was to really map out those urban litter hotspots, obviously prevent as much litter from entering Port Phillip Bay as possible with the traps, and also collect the data on the different locations, quantities, and types of litter that we got in these at-source litter traps. And we wanted to really have this data from phase 1 to then in the future to be able to implement those source reduction plans, also like as SRPs. And on the first round, we had 120 stormwater drain traps installed in 6 different councils. And each council basically had 5 traps in 4 different land use types. So we had traps in CBDs, we had traps in industrial precincts, shopping centers, and also public transport terminals. So we wanted to see how the amounts and types of litter were different depending on where the traps actually were. So it was quite interesting to see that difference as well. You get obviously completely different items in an industrial area versus a shopping center. And the monitoring took place from November 2019 up until May 2020. And we had 6 audits with volunteers and engaged over 90 volunteers throughout the project, which was really great. But obviously then COVID threw little curveballs towards the end of the project as well. Oh, actually, let me see if we get the video working. So we did get a really, really cool video made as well at the end of the project. It's on our YouTube channel, and there's also little snippets of different parts, but let's see. Get that to play and let me know if you can hear the sound once it starts. All good? Can you hear?
Research is telling us that the closer that we get to urban areas, the more of the rubbish that we actually see in our environment and our beaches comes from our catchments. The Let's Drain the Drains project was a way to actually have a look at where that litter was coming from within the catchment, and by putting in drain buddies across different council areas and different land use types, we're able to really pinpoint exactly where these items are originating from.
We are a council that are on the coast. Litter is an ongoing problem in urban areas. It's really important that we do everything we can to keep our bay clean.
A lot of the data that we've seen through the Australian Marine Debris Initiative database has been focused on what's actually escaped from our catchments and then what's washed back up on our beaches. But by going further upstream through our stormwater system, we're able to then have a really good idea at what parts of our community and what parts of the catchment are releasing certain items. Through each council, we've identified 5 locations in 4 different land use types to install these drain buddies. So we've got 5 traps in public transport areas, in supermarket or shopping centres, in a CBD environment, and also in an industrial area. So when we start to analyse this data, we'll actually be able to look not only at different councils, but also across different land use areas to really get a good understanding of where these inputs of different types of litter comes from.
So the stormwater is largely unprotected, unfiltered. By installing drain buddies into the stormwater drains, it actually allows us to filter out the litter, organic matter, to prevent that from entering the bay. So for this project, every 6 weeks we will come through and service those drain buddies, and then that material will be collected and stored into individual bags, and then that'll be brought over to be able to analyse at these community events.
When we look at data coming through on the marine debris and the litter issue, one of the gaps that we had was actually looking at council infrastructure. And that's because council is able to put in infrastructure and empty it, but there's very little time and opportunity to collect detailed data of actually what it's capturing. Through the Let's Drain the Drain project, we're able to work with those councils and bring together community and businesses to provide an opportunity to collect data that would never ever normally be captured.
From a state government perspective, getting a litter baseline data from this sort of work is critical. It will help inform future policy, it'll help inform future programs. The results that we're getting in already at this halfway point are phenomenal.
I'm here today because I want to work within my community with a diverse set of volunteers to find new ways to look at waste and waste streams that are coming across the bay, and understanding through those waste streams what is going to be the potential impact, not only on the bay, but also on water generally around the globe.
It's always fun. There's always jokes. There's always lunch. There's always fruit. I don't know. Everyone's kind of rolls up. They don't expect anything. They're just there to help out. It always ends up a good time, and every set of hands is just fast tracking the information, and maybe we can cut the rubbish sooner.
We're lifting the magnifying glass and intervening at a stormwater trap system. We don't want to be reactive anymore, we want to be proactive and stop it before it reaches the bays. In a typical servicing cycle, we collect up to 3,000 cigarette butts, over 2,000 pieces of food packaging and 2,000 pieces of polystyrene foam.
We know that marine debris really affects our wildlife and our environment, but we also see the impacts now that it has on economies, on fisheries, on tourism, and even human health as it enters through our food chain. So by connecting the items that we're finding through the Let's Drain the Drain projects with everyday items that we as humans use, we're able to look at ways to transition away from some of those most common items that are actually being captured in the data set.
So the benefits are obviously the environmental benefit of we're not getting litter in the street, we're not getting litter going down our creeks and into the bay. There's also the economic arguments in that we're not having to clean up so much. So if we're stopping the litter from getting there in the first place, we don't need to go back and get it out of the drains, get it out of our traps, or fish it out of the waterways.
We can look at the distribution, we can look at the type, the quantity, That's really going to help us to inform where we go to the source of litter and how we put in place some reduction plans.
The sheer quality of the data that comes from a project like this is critical in helping decision makers use an evidence base to choose what we next do in terms of preventing litter from entering our bays.
To be able to work alongside Tangaroa Blue and collect this fantastic data set, I think it's just invaluable, and I think we're making some great ground for councils, government and the like to be able to make positive change for the future generations.
This project is so unique and I'm so proud to be working with it. It brings together state government, non-for-profit, business sector, local government and volunteers of the Victorian community all together to help reduce litter from entering our bays.
I think everyone who lives around Melbourne, we really appreciate Port Phillip Bay. We all really appreciate clean environments. We want to do the best we can to reduce plastic in particular, all kinds of litter. We want everybody at all levels of community to get involved. We want to be leaders in council and we want to take our community along with us.
I would certainly hope that that the impact will be that other councils join in, not only across the Bay, but that this model will be a blueprint for other councils.
The Let's Drain the Drain project has been a trial working with our 6 initial councils. We're really excited to see how they can expand on this project in the future, as well as for us to be able to connect with councils not only across Port Phillip Bay, but across Australia.
Alrighty, that's a good recap. It's always nice to watch that video. Makes me feel good. And it's actually, yeah, it's funny to see Aaron from Clean Water without a beard. Feel like he looks so different back in 2020 before COVID. So just quickly, a little bit the results from phase 1. So we did manage to collect over 75,000 macro items. So that's those larger litter items, and over 670,000 micro litter items. So that would be your nurdles or plastic resin pellets, any broken little piece of plastic, usually smaller than 5 mils is the definition for micro items. So a really astonishing amount. And top 2 items, no surprise there, cigarette butts, taking the lead. And then also miscellaneous paper, so that was including paper remnants as well, because with the storm water litter traps, it is pretty wet, so then those paper items start to break up quite quickly. And the rounds 5 and 6 actually did occur during the COVID-19 restrictions, so when we first entered into lockdown. And you can really see on the graph there how the litter actually decreased quite significantly in April and May when we did do the audit. So up to 75% decrease when comparing to December 2019, which was the highest litter round in the project. So this round as well, it's going to be interesting to see now this first audit, because it would have been again during lockdown, and then the ones moving forward, hopefully no more lockdowns. So we'll see what happens with the litter from there. And
actually, Mel,
yeah.
I was just going to jump in and just say, and actually we've been really quite streamlined. In any time we've done an audit, it's almost been bang smack on a change in conditions for lockdown as well. And it's happened again right now. So it really gives us, instead of, a lockdown going in or out halfway through a cycle, we've managed to align them pretty well with the change in cycle. And so those graphs are quite accurate.
Yeah, that's very true. We totally planned that. But yeah, the full report, if you wanted to have a look, it's available on our website. So definitely go and have a look there. And we'd just like to acknowledge as well the University of New South Wales for helping us with the data. It was really great, and they're helping us on this round as well, which is great. So the introduction of phase 2 that you will be taking part in. So this part of the project will be again delivered by us, Tangaroa Blue, in partnership with Clean Water Group, who manufacture, install and maintain those litter traps. And this round we're getting support from the City of Melbourne, which is a new partner, and Wyndham, Hobsons Bay, Kingston, Maribyrnong and Greater Dandenong are joining in again from phase 1. And we're also excited to have vicinity centres and 2 of their shopping centres within the City of Hume to join this round. And like I said, University of New South Wales is helping us with the data side of things, which is great. And this phase 2 will be running a total of 18 months and kicked off in September. So just been running over a month now. And we will continue to identify those sources and types of pollutants. And this time around, we do have a few extra traps, which is great. So 158 this time around. And big part of this phase 2 will be also to actually plan and implement 8 source reduction plans, which will be focusing on those key litter items. So the data collected during the phase 2 will be used to actually assess how well those plans are working after we do implement them in November. And again, the results will be shared in an open online community forum in early 23, which seems very far away, but it'll come around quickly. And we'll again make a project report as well, which will be published on our website. And just to give you a little overview of the timeline of the project, mainly just so that you can see when the audits will be taking place. So obviously here, the first audit cycle is taking place now, end of October, and the second one will be happening just before Christmas, so mid-December. And by that point, we should be able to have public events so we can actually get together in person and sort through some rubbish together instead of doing it in our homes. And then the rest of the audits will take place in 22, but we do hope to see you in the other audits as well moving forward. Alrighty, before we go into the training section of this session, if you wanted to just step out for a couple of minutes to have a refill of a drink, go to the bathroom, feel free. We can take a couple of minutes and come back, but if you're happy to continue, just let me know and we can keep going.
I'm happy to keep going.
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome, easy. We will do that then. Cool. Alrighty, so the requirements for all the volunteers for this round. So we'd like everyone to sort minimum of 10 bags. If you do feel that you want to start with 5 or anything like that, obviously do let me know, but with like the amount to be 10, it's not 10 full bags. A lot of them are pretty tiny, so don't be intimidated by the number. And we want you to record the data preferably on a digital version of the data sheet. So I'll send you the link through with all the other information as well as you're getting your bags. It's basically on Google Drive, so you can just make a copy and fill that out. Either use your phone, or if you have a tablet or even a laptop that you can have next to you when you're sorting, or have a friend or a family member join you and record everything as you're counting. That would be ideal, just to make sure that there's no issues with me reading anyone's handwriting and all that stuff, and you have basically unlimited space to write notes as well. But if you do really want to just print the data sheet, feel free to do that and send me a copy, but give the digital version a go and see how it feels. And really important as well to take lots of photos. So again, if there's anything that's unclear, that way I have something that I can also go back to and try to look at the photos rather than keep calling you or emailing you to asking more questions. So take lots and lots of photos. There's no such thing as too many. So that would be great. And especially if there's any items that you're unsure of what they are or which category they should go in, just take a photo and then I can have a look. And again, emailing everything through to me once you are done. So melissa@tangroblu.org and send through all the paperwork and data sheets there. And due to the emptying of the trucks being delayed a little bit by classic Melbourne weather, we're now extending the auditing time until end of the month. So you have until Sunday 31st to sort it out. That's a fun Halloween activity. Maybe it's very scary sometimes, the litter that you find. So maybe that can be a Halloween party for this year. Do some rubbish sorting. And just want to make sure also before you commit to the volunteering, before we drop off the bags, that you do have a house within Metro Melbourne. We do have, I know, at least one person who is in the regional area, but it's close to another coordinator who works for Tangaroa Blue. So that kind of works out, but preferably we'd like everyone to be within Metro Melbourne for the bag drop-offs. It would be ideal if you do have a covered space so that you're protected from wind and rain and all that stuff. I personally do sort outside, but then it really does limit my sorting times for those not windy Melbourne days, which can be quite rare. So if you do have a garage or anything like that, that would be ideal. Obviously, you'll need a decent sized table that has enough space for you to spread out the debris from the bag and sort it. A tarp is really handy, just if things drop from the table and stuff, just to give some cover on the ground as well. Dustpan and broom helps with the cleaning part of things. And ideally, you would have some space in your rubbish bins and recycling bins to dispose of the litter. And we are trying to also separate the organics as much as we can, divert those from landfill. So if you get like leaves and stuff like that, if you do have a green bin from your council, please put the organics in there. And also first aid kit supplies. So just in case, band-aids and all that kind of stuff, if you do happen to get any cuts and all that, if you have some of those supplies handy as well. Alrighty, so volunteer kits. So this is basically what you would be getting from us to help you with the sort. So we'll provide you a set of scales so that you can weigh the bags, a pair of gloves. So we just need to know what size. So we have everything from extra small to large. So just give us your best estimate, what size you think your hands are. You'll also get a sharps container just in case if you do get needles or anything like that. I think they have been pretty rare. I don't remember, Heidi, if we actually got any needles in the previous round.
Very, very rarely they did occur.
Yeah.
I think that mainly the clean water guys are trying to, when they empty the traps, if they do see any, then they would remove them at that point and just make a note on the label that there was a syringe in it.
Yeah.
But we can't expect that they've seen everything when they're doing that. Yeah, we definitely weren't finding one in every bag or anything like that. We might have found a couple in a whole service round last time.
Yeah, easy. But yeah, you'll have that container just in case as well. We'll give you some rubbish bags, both for the organics and the general waste, and you'll get a little hand rake to help you with like going through that rubbish before you put your hands in there, just for like, especially for those sharps, so that you can really see those. We'll also give you little labels that you can place on the table to help you with the sorting categories. So they're all laminated, so that should help you a little bit with the different categories as well. You'll get some clips that you can attach the rubbish bags into the table, so that makes it super easy for you to just get the stuff directly from the table, just scoop it in basically. And then all the relevant paperwork. So there is going to be a volunteer signing sheet, there's an incident report form, and there's a safety briefing document as well with notes what to do if you do come across any syringes and all that stuff as well. We will have all that. And I'll make myself available if you just let me know when you're planning to do your first bag. I'm more than happy to jump online, do a video call or a phone call and just kind of walk through the process with you, or at any point if you have any questions. If it's something quick, send me a text or give me a call, or you can send me an email as well, and definitely happy to help you out through the process when you get started. Oh yes, and forgot to mention that if you can write on the chat or send me an email what things you actually require for the volunteer kits, like if you do already have your own gloves or if you do already have scales and stuff, just let me know which items you actually need, and that way we just don't give you everything if you don't actually need it. So yeah, write it on the chat, or if you're watching the recording, if you can send me a quick email to let me know which items you actually need, that would be great. Alrighty, so then the safety brief, I think we'll just watch the video from the first round first. And there's a few things that are a bit different this time around, so then I'll just go through those with you. So we'll watch this one first.
Hey guys, my name is Shai.
And I'm Aaron.
And we're from the Clean Water Group. We've partnered with Tangaroa Blue to audit litter from stormwater drains following the Australian Marine Debris Initiative method. You might be asking yourself, why are we sorting through rubbish caught in stormwater drains? Besides loving to handle rubbish, we're on a mission to stop marine debris before it becomes marine debris. Stormwater is one of the major sources of litter, getting from our cities and towns to the ocean where it becomes marine debris. So we've partnered with Tangaroa Blue and your local council to install these cool contraptions called an app source litter trap, Drain Buddy for short, in drains around the city. This stops the litter upstream and identifies potential sources of litter as these traps are installed closer to the source. So if you're watching this video, you've joined an elite group of heroes in protecting the planet. You've also signed up for an upcoming AMD stormwater audit in your town. So this video is an introduction on what to expect and what to prepare for ahead of the big day.
Thanks,
Cool.
guys.
Step 1. Sign in on the registration form provided. Step 2. Listen to the safety briefing and make sure you have the correct PPE. Know where the toilets, hand washing facilities, and other amenities are around the event site. Bring a water bottle, gloves, hat, sunscreen, and long sleeves if you're working outside.
When handling pollutants, gloves should be worn at all times. Check on the event page on whether gloves will be provided or whether you need to bring your own gloves. In most cases, pollutants are pre-checked for hazardous materials such as needles, glass, nappies, and chemicals. However, some still may be present. Use the allocated sharps container for any hazardous items that are noticed.
Step 3. Read the sample label and weigh the bag with an allocated event coordinator who will record the weight and the sample ID on the data sheet or on a tablet. Step 4. Pour the bag onto the table at your allocated sorting station. Get your buckets ready next to the table. Step 5. Use the provided hand rakes to spread the pollutants, primarily looking for sharps and glass.
Step 6. Find the orange flagging tape and place it next to the sorting tray. Make sure the sample ID written on the tape is the same as the sample ID written on your data sheet.
Step 7. Time to get your hands dirty and begin sorting through the material. The best way to do this is by withdrawing small chunks, roughly 2 handfuls, spreading it out thinly, extract the litter, then pour the remaining material, which is most often organic matter and dirt, into a separate bucket. Methods that can be used to speed up the process of separating gross pollutants from organics are the DJ scrub method, which basically looks like this.
So once we've separated the material, just keep them partially separated here so that when you transfer them over into the separation tray, you're not having to re-separate the stuff, just saves double handling. If you're standing up, you can just take the material straight out of the organic matter straight into the separation tray if you prefer.
Step 8. Separate the litter according to the AMD stormwater categories using the provided separation tray. The tray includes 12 slots, which are meant for macro groups. This means 3 or 4 types of material can go into one slot. Try to dedicate the slots for items with the highest quantities. If you are unsure about which category an item belongs to, please ask one of the event coordinators available. Step 9. Make sure a photo of the separated and counted material has been taken. Most of the time this will be done by an event coordinator, but in some cases you might have to take the photo. Try to use a step to get elevated and get a clear shot of the separation tray. Step 10. Once the photo has been taken, count each piece of litter according to the AMD categories and record on the data sheet or on the tablet with an event coordinator present.
That's 24.
Step 11. Empty the separation tray by separating the soft plastics, the recyclables, and the containers such as glass bottles and aluminum cans for depositing into the container refund scheme. Certain items such as cigarette butts will go into their own allocated area.
Ensure materials are placed into an unmarked bag and not the original sample bag in order to eliminate the potential for any confusion or double counting of samples.
Step 12. Clean up the table with a brush and empty the bucket with organic matter into the designated bag for all organics and non-general waste. Prepare for the next counting and sorting.
Alrighty. So yeah, obviously some things are going to be different for you guys because that's more for the public events, and some things have changed from that for the public events as well. But basically, we do still want you to sign in and register using the form that will be given to you. So obviously, a lot of you will probably sort the bags on different days. So we do want you to still register on the sheet for each day that you do the sorting. So just note the date, put your signature down so that way we just have you covered if anything were to happen on a different day. So remember to always start with the registration. For the schedule, so obviously 2 parts for the audit. So as you saw in the video, you first sort the materials into the different categories and just try to group them to the best of your ability with the space that you have. So for example, like glass items in one corner, then metal items, and plastic, usually you need to put in a few different items, but you'll have those little labels to help you out with that. So food related items in one corner and bottles in another, and so on. And then after you have everything sorted, then you do take the photos and start the counting. And just obviously remember to do just one bag at a time, go through all the steps before you start on another one so that nothing gets mixed. And remember to take as many breaks as you need, like especially if your table is a little bit low, take care of your bag and like have plenty of water breaks and all that stuff, especially since you're at a home environment and no one is telling you to have breaks. So just remember to look after yourselves and have those breaks. And for the safety part, so if you are working outside and not in a covered space, take care of any sun and heat protection. Try not to be in direct sun, obviously, but if you do, remember to wear sunscreen, have long sleeves, hats, plenty of water, all that stuff. And obviously always wear your gloves as well as enclosed shoes because you are dealing with litter and pollutants. So yeah, just make sure that you are always wearing that stuff. And we are also recommending that you do wear a face mask. Every single Victorian has plenty of them by now. So we do recommend that you wear that just for the smell and any other pollutants that might be present. It is highly recommended that you do wear a face mask as well. And you will get the little handbrake So remember to use that first, just to kind of try to flatten out the litter items to make sure that there's none of those sharps and glass present, and be careful when handling those if you do find any. Heavy lifting, so some of the bags could be a little bit on the heavier side. We do try to make sure when giving you the bags that we are giving you the easier and the less heavy ones, and we'll deal with the larger amounts, but obviously take care when lifting anything on the table. And try to have the sorting table as high as possible. Like I mentioned before, it can be strenuous on your back if you have to lean a lot forward. So if you have anything that can kind of lift the table a little bit, put something under the legs, that can really help. It can make a big difference. Or you can sit on the chair like in the video, the guys were sitting down as well. So that's perfectly fine too. If you are involving your kids in sorting, that's absolutely fine, but you do still need to sign them on the registration sheet. So guardians need to do that, and obviously supervise your kids and make sure that they're safe and all that. So we do have our child protection policy and code of conduct available on our website in our health and safety management strategy. And then in regards to the dangerous items, so if you do come across those syringes, obviously continue to wear your gloves. If you have a pair of tongs that you can use to pick them up rather than using your hands, that again would be ideal. Carefully pick it up and place the sharp end first into the sharp container, and then secure the lid, and that should do it. And first aid, like we said before, it would be good if you do have any of those equipment close by, just in case if you do need it. And again, if anything, when you kind of get started, if you don't remember some of this stuff or just are not sure, if you come across an item, what to do with it, if it is dangerous or anything like that, again, feel free to give me a call or send me through an email, and I will definitely give you an answer. But yeah, that's the safety part of things. Do either of you have any questions about that at this stage?
How do we dispose of the sharps container if we use it?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's easiest if you just keep the sharps container obviously closed and secure. And then when we come back and get the rest of the stuff from the kids anyways, then I'll take care of the disposal. So if we get a few different ones, I can just do it all together rather than you guys needing to do it. But for future reference, if you do get any sharps in any other cleanups, you can dispose of them, I believe, through pharmacies, and also hospitals and councils can help you with that as well. I don't think I've ever needed to empty my sharps containers yet, so I do need to get that actually done. I do have a few in my own container as well. So after this round is done, I'll definitely do that too. Oh, nope. There we go. Alrighty, so then for the sorting and data collection, a bit more detail about that. So as per on the video, we do want you to weigh the bag and record the total weight. So you have the scales to do that, and then there's a slot in the data sheet that asks for the weight. So always start with that, and then remove the sticker. So there's a sticker as on the right-hand side on every single bag with the code. So basically there's the letters for the council that it's from, and then the number for the specific track. So that is really important to record correctly. I've been handwriting the sticker, so if you can't read it, just send me a message and I'll let you know what the letters and numbers are. But I've been trying to be really clear. Project in all of them obviously is LSTD for Let's Drain the Drains, and then there's the date that the trap was actually emptied on. So remove the sticker from the bag, place it on the table so that it's visible, and again, record every detail from that sticker on your data sheet. So there is a little section to write down all those details. Then empty the content of the bag on the table. carefully, like especially if it's a bit more full, you might need to even do it in a few separate rounds. But yeah, just make sure that it's not spilling all over the table. Separate the actual litter from the organics, and kind of same as on the video, try to already, when you do the separation, group them so that you don't have to do the work twice, basically. So cigarette butts in one pile, glass items in one, metal in one, and so on. And we'd like you to then, once you've finished all of that, to put all the organics back into the bag and weigh it again and record the weigh of the organics only. This is for the project purposes as well. So we're just trying to collect data on how many kilos is actually organics versus the litter. So that's slightly different from the previous round. So we'd like you to do that step as well. And always, always, always remember to first take a photo of the sticker, like on the right-hand side. So just a close-up so that we can see all the details. Then after you've done the sorting, take a photo from high up of everything together on the table. And after that, you can take pictures of any specific items or anything you're not unsure of, any branded stuff that you think is of interest. And that way your phone doesn't just have pictures of like different items and we don't know what bag it belongs to. If you always take first a photo of the sticker, then that helps us to keep track of what litter items actually belong to which bag. So it makes it a lot easier. So remember to take sticker first, then the total amount, and then any specific items from there on. So that would be really great. Any questions about this part for the sorting and the data collection?
Yeah, I've just got a question about the weight of the bag. We don't have to take that off.
How do you mean?
Like, because when we weigh it in the bag, we're getting the weight of the bag as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
the
No.
bag is negligible. So
Oh, negligible.
yeah, yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, all good. Great question. Thank you, Kate. Perfect. All righty. And then once you've started your counting and recording, again, from those easily identified items, and then you can work your way through kind of to the harder ones. So obviously cigarette butts are super easy, drink bottles, kind of cans, those bigger items that are easy to identify what they are. Do just one group at a time if you can, and then as you go, you can remove that pile of items back into a rubbish bag so that you don't count anything twice and all that. This is a little screenshot as well of a section in the data sheet. So that's how it's going to look like when you open it. So it will have the material category, so in this case plastics, and it's divided into plastic packaging, and then the plastic packaging is divided into those smaller categories as well. So you write down the total items, how many you have of that category, and then you have the space to write notes. So if you do have any brands that you can record or any other notes that you want to add in, feel free to type as many, because in the digital form, like I said, there isn't any limit. And I have noted in the data sheet in red, as you can see here, the categories that we do want the brands on. So you don't need to do it for everything, but the ones that are marked in red, we do want you to record the brands if it's visible. Sometimes you might get water bottles that don't have the label anymore. So if it's not on the cap of the bottle either, you won't know what brand it is. So that's okay. But if you can see the brand, we would like you to record that as well. And yeah, you can see an example on point number 3 of how we'd like you to write those notes for the brands. So for example, with straw wrappers, you'd write the total, in this example, 11 straw wrappers altogether. And then in the notes section, you'd write down how many from that 11 are branded. So there might be one that's just a standard little one, clear plastic, doesn't have any branding. And then we do get a fair bit of bubble tea related straw wrappers as well. And we are really interested in those brands so that we can track which brands we get the most in which areas and so on. So there might be 8 that read charity on the wrapper and 2 that say gotcha. So just make sure that you capture that information and write it in the notes section. There is also a remnant category for plastics. So we generally say that if it's less than 50% of what it used to be, it can be classified as a remnant. So we do get a fair bit of those just random pieces of hard plastic that you just don't know what it was. There's no way of knowing. So then you can count those all together. Doesn't depend what shape or color it is. It all goes under the remnants. So with them, we do have the hard plastics. So that's the really frigid plastic that you can't really scrunch up or anything like that. So that would be your hard plastics. We also have the soft plastic or film remnant category. So that's your pieces of plastic bags or like random plastic sheeting and stuff like that. So record those separately from the hard plastics. And there is also a category for burnt plastic, but I don't think we really found any of that, Heidi, in the last round. Yeah, usually that's more related to beach cleanups when you have ships that burn their plastic, so then you might get these clumps. But for you guys, hard plastic and film would be the relevant ones. Then there might be additional items that you don't just really feel that fits in any of the categories. There might be something that we haven't come across. So then there is space at the end of the data sheet as well for any additional items. So you can just write notes what it is. Again, take a photo if you can. So then I have something to go back to if you have written an additional item. I can just be like, okay, let me go and have a look what it is if you're not sure.
And Mel, can I just jump in? And so yeah, just to add to that, the most important thing is if you're not sure what it is, that we record the material type and then what the item is. So the database split, the first split of all data items has to do with what the material is made of and then what it is. So so that's what we'll need to know if it's an additional item, what the main material type is and then what the item is.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, whether it's plastic, wood, metal, note that down, and that helps us kind of put it in the right spot as well. And we would like you to ask to still keep the litter items in, like put it back to the bag that you have emptied with the sticker inside of the bag. So peel it off the bag and put it inside after you've taken the photos and done all the counting. And hold on to them until I've had a chance to review your data sheet, just in case if I do have any extra questions or something doesn't add up, then you haven't already put all the stuff in landfill and then we have no way of knowing what was in. So I'll try to be obviously as quick and efficient with that, so you don't need to hold on to it for like weeks and weeks. I will review them on a timely manner, and then once you get the okay from me, then you can split them into recycling and general waste. So again, as much as you can put into recycling would be great, with the bottles and the cans and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes they're just like really dirty or full of stuff and all that. So then it might not be worth it, but try to divert as much as you can into recycling. And the video did mention separating soft plastics as well, but especially with the soft plastic, it is really tricky because it would need to be dry and clean for RedCycle to accept it. So again, just use your common sense. If you think that it can go in, obviously great, but don't stress about it if you do have to put stuff in general waste. Any questions about the data sheet or the notes or anything like that? All good? Awesome. So then just to give you an option, if you do happen to come across a bag that has a lot of little pieces, usually we wouldn't get this high of an amount of just random remnants. This is more if you do get a bag with a lot of noodles or plastic resin pellets, those little plastic balls that are basically the raw form of plastic. Some of the trucks do get thousands of them, but again, we're trying not to give those to you volunteers. We have a pretty good idea which trucks do have them from the previous round. So I am trying to take those on to myself. to sort through, but you might get some of them. So to make it faster and easier for you, if you do come across a lot of little stuff, the quadrant method can save you a lot of time. So once you've kind of taken all the other litter items out and taken as much of the organics out as you can, then you can spread the rest in a square and then basically keep dividing that square until you get a manageable amount. And then you just count the little items in that one square and time that how many squares you took from the original one. So like in the photo, there's one square and then that's been divided into 4, and you just count the items in one of those little squares and then time that total with 4, and that gives you an estimate how much would have been in that whole area. If you do use this method for anything, just again on the data sheet, just leave a note in brackets that you've used the quadrant method so that we know that it's an estimate and not an exact number as well. But I'm hoping that you won't need to use this and you won't get any noodles in your bags. But if you do come across and need help, again, give me a call. We can do a video call and go through the effort together as well if you have any questions. And then a few resources that might be useful for you to get started. So we do have a really great, just newly updated marine debris identification manual that's downloadable for free from our website in a PDF form. So it has the how to sections, how to do all the sorting. It has that quadrant method explained as well. It has all the categories that we have in the database with photos and examples. So if you're not sure, it's a great resource to go through. And nice tip that I didn't learn until very late in the game is to use Control F. And then you can actually easily search specific items rather than scrolling through the whole document. Oh, it changed my life once I learned this. So if you are searching for something specific, try to use that first. It's a great tip as well. And we do have a lot of really great YouTube videos as well on our YouTube channel. So about the different types of packaging, those plastic remnant categories, straws, foam. If you do get any tags from like industrial areas, how to record those details, and also how to separate cotton buds from lollipop sticks. So that's a good one definitely to look through as well, because we do get both of those items in the traps as well. How cotton bud sticks end up in a stormwater drain, I don't know, but they still do. So just make sure that you know the difference, because they do look quite similar.
And Mel, probably one of the items that we never really realized before we started this project was the cigarette pack wrap. So for those of you that do beach cleanups, like maybe you'd find, you know, when they open a pack, they rip off the top bit, or it's the actual bit that goes around the cardboard box, or the pouches. I mean, we might find one piece of that in a beach cleanup, and that's about it. But we were finding, you know, 50, 60, 80 of these in some of the traps. And in most cases, people might just record those as a plastic film remnant or a soft plastic remnant. But we are trying to actually pull that out, and there is a specific section in the packaging, plastic packaging part of the data sheet for cigarette pack wrap. And so just when you first start going through, have a look at them. They're quite distinct because they're either the little triangular kind of bits at the top or the square bits at the bottom, and your eye kind of gets into it once you're knowing. But we are just saying if you can have a bit more of a look at that, so that they don't just get classified as soft plastic remnants, because that's really interesting. And we're trying to do some source reduction projects around those, and what shops are generally around the stormwater traps where we find a lot of that stuff as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Hayley. Yeah, usually, like, especially on the top bits, it will still have kind of like that red or golden thing that you use to kind of like peel it off. So that's kind of a good indication that it's a cigarette related one. So again, just when you come across them, put them in one pile separate from other soft plastics. So then you don't have to try to separate them again, and yeah, count them as one category. And in the data sheet, you can see under plastic packaging, there is one that specifically says cigarette pack wrap. So count under that. Perfect. Alrighty, so then for the disposal part of the debris, so again, most non-recyclable debris that's in small quantities can be disposed of in the general waste bin. So not everything can be recycled, unfortunately. So what you need to put in the general waste bin, do that. Obviously, double check if you're not familiar with what actually can be recycled in your council area. Double check that. There's unfortunately just so many differences even between the councils in Melbourne. Some councils want you to put the lid on bottles, others want you to separate it and not put it in recycling. So there's a lot of differences. So just make sure that you're across all that and know that what can actually go in. Make sure that the recyclables obviously are relatively clean and uncontaminated and not full of leaves or dirt or anything like that, so that once you put it in the bin, it actually has a chance of getting recycled. It doesn't need to be squeaky clean. They obviously do get, so it has, if it has a little bit of dirt or mud on, that's all right for like a drink bottle. But especially with the paper, like it's usually wet, it's usually pretty dirty. So I wouldn't be putting that stuff in the recycling bin to not contaminate the rest of it. And yep, if you do have a faux bin or a FOGO bin, go bin or FOGO, you can put your organics there again, as long as they're not hugely contaminated. If it's just leaves, branches, stuff like that. But usually you can put like dirt and soil in them. So again, just be mindful of what you do end up putting in your green bin or your home compost if you have one in your backyard as well. But try to put as much as you can into those green bins. And yep, hazardous items in accordance with local regulations. So if you do get any broken glass or any light bulbs, stuff like that, obviously wrap them securely before putting them in general waste bin. So again, don't put broken glass in your recycling bin, that'll just contaminate it. So make sure you put it in general waste bin, and be careful when you do. If you get any fluorescent light tubes, which again, I don't think we did get in the previous round, but with the industrial areas, you just never know what ends up in the traps. So if you do get those, they do contain mercury. So just check with your local council about the disposal of those items if you do come across them. And syringes, I know it says here that take it to your local hospital, council, or healthcare, but again, just leave it in the container, and then when I'll come and pick up the kits, I'll take care of the disposal. So don't worry about that if you do come across the syringes. Any questions about the disposal of the rubbish? Okay, awesome. Well, that actually brings us to the end of the session. So if you do have any general questions or about any part of this or about the project, Tangara Blue, anything like that, feel free to ask, and either myself or Katie can answer.
I'm just wondering how the councils that you're working with were chosen. How did you decide which councils you're working with? Did you approach lots of them and just the ones that agreed, or did you target certain councils?
So originally for phase one, we contacted councils that we have been working with on other projects. So back in 2015-16, we actually ran a source reduction project with, I think it was 11 different councils around Port Phillip Bay. And we looked at running local projects with those guys. And so we've had some really good relationships with councils through source reduction and through Operation Clean Sweep, which looks at the nurdles. So we let those councils know that we had existing contacts and relationships with, that there was this opportunity. And out of those, the original, we originally only thought we would have 5, but then at the last minute we had another one. So we ended up having 6 of those councils came and said, yes, we're very keen to be involved in this. So we went back to those councils for phase 2. And when we actually wrapped up phase 1, we did a big community online workshop. We ended up having something like 84 people come on to see the results of that project. And there were a lot of other councils there as well, not only from Victoria, but in other parts of Australia. And so those guys, some of those guys came in and talked to us and said, hey, if you're doing phase 2, we want to be involved as well. And that's why we got this initial project with the City of Melbourne coming on. And also Aaron works, his company has been working with some of the shopping centres now for a while, and they were very keen to get involved in this project too, because it was really looking at that source reduction phase now, as opposed to just doing the auditing. Phase 1 was just completely about the auditing. Phase 2 is now about using the auditing to implement projects and of course then monitor the projects as well. So that's how those original councils came on board.
Thanks.
And was that sort of part of the design that was going from the Bayside councils upstream, because just with the Kingston and then Dandenong and Maribyrnong and Hobson's Bay to kind of tie in with the topography sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to show that sometimes the councils that are right on the beach are the ones that are dealing with litter from all over the catchment and not just from their council areas. And things like parking tickets are a classic example. You can have a parking ticket sitting on a beach in St Kilda that came from somewhere in the CBD. So being able to show those pathways is really important. And councils have always been really supportive about understanding better where they should be investing their litter money and their litter resourcing, but they didn't really have the data, and their council infrastructure teams and waste teams, they just don't have time to collect all the data out of the trap. So it was such a unique project where we could say, well, these guys are data deficient. We don't have the assets to be to go and do the project on our own. So it was really filling the gap, and Sustainability Victoria came in with some extra funding and their collaboration and network on how this feeds up into the state level as well. So it was so unique and it was a win-win for everybody.
Awesome. All righty. Any other questions that come to mind?
So Mel, it might be worthwhile just saving your presentation as a PDF.
Yep.
And just making sure that all of those links.
That's Willow, everyone.
The Kelpies guard dogging. Just the links to those videos and those resources so people don't have to hunt them down.
Yep, definitely. So I'll be sending through an email to everyone with the copy of the presentation, link to the recording of this training session as well, and all those links that were dropped throughout the presentation with the resources and all that stuff. So I'll gather all that under one email. So it's going to be nice and convenient. In regards to dropping off the bags, so I'm going to get in touch with Clean Water today and just try to get a bit of a schedule on when we'd actually be doing it. We're looking at dropping off some of the bags tomorrow at least. So I'll just make a little bit of a plan and get in touch with everyone as well to see what your schedule is looking like, and if you have a kind of place where we could just even drop off the bags in the middle of the night tonight when we're emptying the traps, which will probably happen between 8 p.m. and hopefully we'll be done by 3 a.m. but we'll see how we go. So if you have kind of a space where we can just drop off the bags and the volunteer kit at any point of the night, we might do some of those even tonight, but then tomorrow or Saturday the latest, we hopefully have all the bags dropped off so that you can get started this weekend if you want to, or then have the whole week to go through as well. So we'll try to get that sorted in the next couple of days. Awesome. All righty. Well, I think that's all from us for now then. Again, if anything comes to mind later on, you have my phone number and my email. Feel free to get in touch if anything comes to mind. And I hopefully get to meet you all face to face when dropping off the bags, but I do understand if you don't want to get up at 3 a.m. to come and say hello. So then I'll see you when I come and pick up the kids, hopefully in weeks or 2 weeks time. So look forward to meeting you. So grateful again to have you part of the project. It's great to have you on board and volunteer for something something like this, we are really, really grateful for all your help. And yeah, hopefully for the next round of audits, we can actually all get together and do an audit together. So that would be great. But yeah, thank you again for all your help and support.
Thanks.
Great to meet you guys. Have a good week.
Thanks, everyone.